yeah, so slight camera move here, camera move here. I did a rearranging of this, but Rick has already gone ahead and made a better version of what I have. So this was just, trying to get Jay to kind of stand on the boombox and see if I could kind of make that work with what I already had. And then in this shot, the camera has kind of an A and a B, but now the distance is way longer. So I was trying to figure out if that would work. This probably has to be adjusted way more if I actually put Rick's animation in there. But I'm trying to keep it rough and light. Some gummy bear stuff, but also the meat stick is now a candy bar. Out of the candies, the ring-esque candies changed into Doritos. So I made that all kind of work. I made a kind of I knew I had to do the vignettes of the 3 vignettes of the sprites, and I asked Matthew that, I think we used to have at some point where Sprite Village is just this massive place, so massive that it's bigger than, screen right and screen left. So it actually clips, which made it a little bit more vague where the vignettes are happening. But because now it's more of a cozy, humble abode, I wanted to ask him if it's okay if I can kind of maybe put those things there and then they kind of exist there. But I'm trying to kind of not spoil exactly the, what's happening with the spider, for example. And also just for the sake of wanting to test something out, because I had already done this kind of whole thing here. I just tried, well, what if I do it maybe here, and then what does that feel like? I just finished, by the way, exporting version 81. So that is available in the export folder. I did these guys doing their thing with some acting choices. This with acting choices. This is new. Oh yeah, there was this beat of a huh, and I just moved it to another place. Yes, I made this mastery of animation with this ladybug here, where she kind of flies in and lands on him. It's amazing. I want an Annie Award or Oscar or something. I don't know. Also, the line, this line here, we reverted that one just because the one we were testing out didn't quite work as well. I got a new recording from for Elder Sprite where he says, absolutely. And then he adds, a friend of the forest is a friend of the sprites. And it's just to kind of ramp up that that contrast that's about to happen when we see this, where it's all messy and there's a lot of, so they've kind of trashed nature, so they're not friends of the nature. It's maybe not reading as well as I would have hoped, but it is what it is for now. This is a new shot, new shot in the layout. I did this. I found out some stuff in Blender in the video sequencing editor that doesn't work so nicely, so I had to do a cheat for that just to give this a slight blue hue or whatever. This shot got added. This is new. I was very happy that I almost made a kind of a cheap flashlight placeholder for the layout, and then I realized, no, the flashlight exists. What am I talking about? So I was very happy, and it actually has a rig. So that was really cool. I added the boombox back again, but it's still, it's like I told Matthew that these two ideas, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. So we wanted to try out what if Jay still has this ladybug thing, but then right after that, the boombox falls in. So yeah, so you can judge for yourself in the latest version. There was an update on this thing after Mike, the true British person, told us that knob is an insult that is a little bit more like calling somebody a silly goose or whatever. So it's not really when these guys have killed your friends or whatever. It just seems like it's not as big of a word that she would say here. So little green bastard. So it's just ramping it up a little bit. And that is, I did some other stuff, but that's boring. So that's it for me.
You might remember this from last week, which was just the Phil Fire spoilers that was just an initial test. And then this week, I tried to make a campfire version of that, because we just wanted to look at a very simple example of just a default campfire. This was a little bit too busy, and so I managed to slow it down and make it flow a little bit more nicely. And the idea is that this is a base that can be compared with all the other fire tests that we have made so far. And I then proceeded to bake the fire, which is not really necessary because you can sim the fire directly to OpenVDB, and it all works. So that's basically what I did. And I saved the VDB cache onto our storage so we can read it back from the farm. And that was all nice and everything. Then in the meantime, Simon prepared the scene, which contains a fireplace, and I added the Sprite and Rex into the scene with animation that Rick provided on 1s and 2s. I made this great idea of a switcher script, which proved to be very buggy, and it caused a lot of problems during this week. But oh well. So we just we can switch the animation 1s and 2s out, and we can switch the different fire methods out, and then just send this to the farm. But yeah, it was a little bit tricky to get this to work, and Simon helped me a lot to debug all this stuff. Talking about debugging, they're sending the stuff to the farm. You can't assume that it all goes fine. Well, everything here is green, but that's because I deleted all the stuff that failed. Halfway starting this rendering, I noticed that the farm was failing like hell. So and then Simon helped me to debug it, and it turns out that there was a stroke object that was not used in the file, and that was added by mistake, but I just couldn't find it. And then Blender wanted to render this using Eevee, even though Cycles was enabled as a render engine. So it was complaining on the farm, obviously, because the farm doesn't have any displays, and Eevee needs a graphics card or a display attached to it. And that took some while to figure out, and in the end, I just deleted the object because it wasn't really needed. And then I also cached, quote-unquote, Rick's fire by just copy and pasting every single frame and then into a new file, because for some reason, caching this to Alembic and anything else doesn't work. So the way that we solved it is just having each object there and then animating the visibility in and out, and that was it. And then the rest of the fire tests, I think Simon is going to show. Thank you.
Beginning of the week, I was working on some feedback on Ellie's body rig, and I accidentally came up with some new tech that so far I really like, and I haven't heard complaints about this specifically, although I have heard many complaints, but not about this thing specifically. So this is like there's a connecting bendy bone from the torso to the legs that just works automatically. It's surprisingly nice, and then the surrounding area of the pants is weighted to that, and it deforms like this without any shape keys. And I think in a second in the video I disabled the corrective smooth. No, it is disabled. This is without corrective smooth and without shape keys. So I was very surprised that I haven't seen this in other people's rigs, which is what I normally use to steal all their tech. So yeah, I was happy with that. And then after that, some more spine tech, but this time different. And this is that in the past, if it was a mutually exclusive choice in the rig between like having those purple controls, which might be a bit hard to see, which allow you to move the deforming bones arbitrarily, or having bendy bones. But I realized that I was being dumb, and you can have both at the same time. So now that's there as well, which is pretty nice. And then some work on Rex's face. And what I wanted to achieve was to make it possible to do that, which is when like his mouth corner is pulled super far, and then if you open his jaw, previously it would break pretty easily. And now if you move it further than this, it would still break, but at least you can move this much without having to adjust the secondary controls too much, hopefully. And yeah, it's a bit of a mess underneath because you have to, like, there's 3 conditions to activate that corrective action. Like the mouth has to be pulled wide up and the jaw has to open and then it activates. But it's working, I think, I hope. And then yesterday, I started working on the bird. And so this was an experiment at a minimum headache idea to deform the wings. And it didn't work out that well. So the idea was to have a super low poly mesh driving the deformation of the wing using a surface deform modifier. But as you can see, like this is the sculpt reference. And this is the result with that cheap tech. It almost functions. If there wasn't a shot where this is going to be very clearly visible, then we could get away with that. But the first time we see the bird, it's going to be from a top view and it's going to flap its wings all over the place. So can't really get away with that. So today, although today has been a short day so far, because a couple hours ago, a certain Dalai Felinto and Bastien Montan asked me if I want to go ice skating. So this will still be improved later today. But this is how it is now. So this is just pure bones. As you saw, if I go back here, it's a giant mess of bones, but it's not as messy as it looks. So ignore the feathers. I haven't posed the feathers yet, but you can see that the feathers are not squashing anymore. And so I was focusing so far only on the yellow part of the wing, and that should be pretty close to the sculpt now. So this is the rig with the corrective shape key and the corrective smooth, and that's the sculpt reference. So it's pretty close, I would say. So I'm happy with that. Just need to get the feathers working, which should be just a matter of posing them, which I haven't done yet. And then we should have a functioning bird, I think. And that's it for me.
Well, at the start of the week, I was still cleaning up the bird retopo a little bit, so I can just hand it over immediately to Matt and everyone else, and uploading cloud content. And then for the rest of the week, I was working on the snail. So, like previously, it was just kind of blocked into place, having the general proportions. And I started sculpting it. This was basically the first sculpt that I made of it. And then I further went into different expression sculpts, just really working on it, remeshing it. Just there's the moment where it smiles, where it chews on a leaf. Or maybe there's a scene where it's gonna be shocked, but this is probably just extra. Where it's angry. There's also an alternative version of this where Rex is holding a snail and it's kind of looking mad at him, back at him. And I added a couple more of just it turning around and being kind of surprised and maybe kind of like pushing its eyes into its body and kind of getting squashed as it is being scared. But I also made a little cheat of this with everything side by side, and this is gonna end up on the cloud very soon. Except for that, there's also just a neutral, cleaned up sculpt with everything symmetrical. This is going to be the basis for the retopology, essentially. Yeah, there were some notes on like how chunky, how smooth all of this is supposed to be. So I think this is pretty much it. And I also spent a significant amount of time of just sitting downstairs in the recording room, working in there, and actually recording the entire process. So 2 videos are already on the cloud, fairly unedited. It's more like a live stream format almost. But there's going to be at least 2 more videos that are going to be added next week, and that's basically it.
That Ellie, like a first pass of Ellie, just to check. Like, I mean, to have like a starting point to talk about the stuff. So I had already some retakes and I will be working on that next week. So yeah, that's for the moment what I have.
I started this week populating the crowd camping shot, where all of the characters are doing their own thing, and I updated Jay doing the pulling of the branch, and went a little bit back and forth with Matthew, but I think we landed on something nice. And then I continued to block in some more posing on on Victoria, even though her rig is temporary. So slowly but steadily, we'll be able to update the shot as the rigs progress. So, and then I also tested the facial performance of Ellie, going to several emotions here, and yeah, rig is very nice. Her shape blends very well to create very clean mouth shapes, and yeah, overall I think she's a very appealing character. So then next to that, I today I started with doing a Meet Ellie pose simply for maybe like casting purposes, but just to get a little bit of a sense of her attitude, and maybe do some animation on that too. So that was it.
Yeah, so my week was a lot of small things here and there, actually. So in the beginning, I started recording the videos where I just go through stuff I already showed yesterday, but I made recordings of actually going through everything for the cloud and uploaded the files for the geometry nodes stuff. Yeah, so those are these two videos. They're on the cloud. And there was a bunch of fixing of things here and there for the pipeline tool that didn't work before, but now they work, like having multiple different hair instances in the same scene, even for the same character. So we can have as many Ellies or Rexes or whatever as we want into the same shot, and the hair still works. Particle Alistair deforms with the rig. And similarly, something I did today was also making sure that we can rig the hair with actual vertex groups and not just with surface deform, which is what we were using before. So here you can see it not working when I update the grooming. When I try to deform it again, it doesn't work, but then now it works. There we go. Ignore the background, but the particles deform. Yeah, a lot of this stuff here and there. Also, which Andy already talked about, the fire that we wanted to render. So here I grabbed Rick's sculpted per keyframe mesh and just gave it some shading to render it out. There's a version here where I just also added some particle effects. These sparks. And yeah, I can just go through the rest of the fire that Andy didn't show yet. So we have a folder team fire here because we all worked on this. And then we have the full comparison of the different fires. So there's the fully procedural fire that I worked on, which is a little bit floaty. There's definitely some things to improve. There's the sculpted fire by Rick, which looks very cool, and the simulated fire here. Going through it very quickly here. So we have the different versions on 2s and 1s for both the animation and the fire where it's fitting. And yeah, those are just very different styles together. And I think we all still agree that the 2's variation is very charming, but we have to really see how that works with the fire that we want to go for, and then push that as far as possible. So yeah. Oh yeah, and then where's my folder? Here we go. Just quickly did a rendering that Matthew wanted. I don't know if he made it into the call at this point, but this is also updated with the new pose, so Matthew can take this. Yeah, other than that, always some geometry nodes, design meetings and patch reviews here and there, and other small things that I don't want to mention here because it's just too much.
So I worked on Sprite Village. We had a lot of meetings and discussions about what kind of props might be fitting for the sprites and what kind of stuff would be too advanced. And yeah, it's a bunch of sketches, also figuring out the arrangements of things and how much gardening they do, which materials they would use to make their houses. nicer and decorated. So yeah, I combined sticks with leaves basically. And then I also worked on the characters and what they would look like when they get distressed. And so here's Ellie and Rex and Vicky. Vicky gets 2 stages. This is the one with her hair chopped off by spiders. Yeah, and that was my week.